Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 on October 9th, 2025, and this is the monthly meeting of Fitchburg's Transportation and Transit Commission. Let the secretary note that everyone, all the commissioners are here. Elizabeth on video.
No.
No.
Sorry.
There you are. Just conjured you. I appreciate the work on the agenda. Does anybody have anything that they would like to defer or omit, since we can't add anything? Rearrange. Seeing none, take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Maggie, thank you. All right, so we will go with this agenda. Next up are the minutes of September 11th, 2025.
Implied vote.
Oh, yeah, let's vote. We could do the unanimous consent thing secretly. All in favor of accepting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, they are unanimously accepted. That is the agenda. It is onto the agenda of September 11th, 2025.
I will move approval of the minutes from September 11th.
As submitted. Okay, second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
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 Very good, that's unanimous. We're up to staff report.
Alrighty, so starting off with more project-based stuff, Cyan Phase 1, that RRFB in the Swan Creek Park that goes across south of the Citgo, finally on track to get that reinstalled. That should be put back in about 2 weeks. They're doing concrete next week and then the actual post the week after. Phase 2 is complete. That's between East Sherrill and West Clayton. So we're in the punch list phase for that, but it's all paved, all marked, everything's open. And then for Phase 3, that just got the binder put down today. It will get the surface asphalt and the bike path paved next week. They're doing concrete, a little bit that's left in between there. And then we'll have a signal turn-on meeting in 2 weeks. They've already got the pedestrian signal heads installed, and then they'll be putting up the full traffic signal posts. That's, besides the paving and stuff, that's the main work that they'll be doing for the next couple of weeks, is putting those up and installing everything.
Great weather for paving.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't get too cold on us, but it's supposed to warm up a little bit, so it'll be good.
West Clayton Road, we got that speed limit changed, right?
The speed limit was changed. The signs still need to be changed. I followed up with streets. It's on their list of things to do.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, I was through there on bikes through the, on the Cap City Trail. Looks great. Really coming along.
Yeah, they'll switch over that temporary trail to the real trail once they do the surface
Pave
paving.
the road, yeah.
And did you say when that is projected to be done?
The surface paving,
Yeah.
like next Monday or Tuesday.
And then the phase 3 will be complete.
It's scheduled to be complete November 3rd. We're hoping to open it a little bit earlier, but there's also some things happening where we might have to open it slightly later. So on average, we're still at November 3rd.
Aiming for November 3rd.
Yeah. For Fitchrona Road, the TPP, we voted on that last time. That was approved at council and recorded, so property acquisition has started on that project. Our specialist is in touch with the property owners along there. And then also, it did not come to this committee, but we had a contract amendment with AECom, our designer on that project, and that amendment was approved, or will be approved, sorry, on October 14th.
What's the amendment?
Most of it is to do with adding in the sanitary sewer design. We were not previously going to replace any sanitary sewer on that project, and then through various developments with property owners and other municipalities, we came to the conclusion that upsizing that sanitary sewer is the best way to serve the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood.
Okay.
So it'll all
So
go
it'll
towards
be-
that MMSD lift station.
It'll be lifted up out of the South Stoner Prairie up to that point, because that's lower.
That is, yes, most likely.
Some of it is lower.
Yeah, we haven't done any of the, design for that yet. We just know that from somewhere in the neighborhood, we'll get it to the road and we'll need a bigger pipe once that happens, so. Other than that, the County Highway underpass design contract that will be approved, that will be going to council on October 14th for hopeful approval, and then we'll get started on that design.
A question on that? So that will eventually have a multi-use path north to connect to the Cap City Trail. In the meantime, there is a very nice buffered bike lane southbound to that point, and a narrower northbound bike lane. Will we be able to get, as part of the design, any access to those bike lanes before the multi-use path is eventually built due to development?
We can definitely take a look at that. I wouldn't want to put in any kind of it wouldn't make sense to do like a crossing from where the trail ends from this underpass project, because we are building about 500 feet of trail to the north.
Yep.
It wouldn't make sense to cross back over to the northbound bike lane, obviously.
I was thinking of sort of like a ramp
off of the south
from each side of the tunnel up to the bike lane, and
we can look at that. It's not,
elevations are challenging.
Yeah, we don't have that in our scope right now. And the elevation, especially northbound, would be probably pretty difficult. But we can take a look at that.
Yeah. So you could come earlier than right at the underpass too.
Yeah.
So right now, if you snapped your fingers and that tunnel was done, what would you encounter when you came out on the west side?
It would still be a path to nowhere.
It just goes and it stops there.
Yes.
Dirt. There's not any design at the moment to do anything beyond just have the tunnel.
I think we've had like 3 designs,
Yeah.
none of which have come to fruition.
Yeah, so basically, I applied for this grant when we had a pretty solid developer for that land to the west of MM and east of 14. That fell through, didn't happen. That developer will continue the path to the north. And we've gone back and forth a lot on whether we want to build this tunnel without a confirmed developer there. But staff has come to the conclusion that we have grant money for this, so we think that's eventually gonna develop, so we should build this tunnel now while we have grant money for it.
And
The grant could not be delayed.
No, correct.
And to that point, I was also concerned, and I would not want to see us build a tunnel to nowhere that sits there for 20 years. From my conversations within my district, it sounds like there's another development that is coming forward at that site. Again, we've had multiple before, and yes, I am cautiously
Maybe
optimistic.
the fourth time will be the charm.
But if it goes forward, it would not be a tunnel to nowhere for a significant, decade or 2 decades.
So we could call it the Logan Rugstead Tunnel, just.
I don't want that kind of pressure, Rick.
Anything else on that? Alright. Other stuff that I'm working on, some traffic studies in our healthy neighborhoods for the community development team, helping out with those. We're looking at marking that Lacey Road bike lane between MM and Brassica in Terravessa. We'll be marking that hopefully in the next couple of weeks. All it's going to be is some no parking signs and a bike symbol, so that's a pretty small change for us.
It's fairly wide.
Mhm.
It would be, if we have the square foot of paint left in the budget, it would be good to do a buffer line too, even though the rest of it is not buffered.
Right now, we're just planning to do that stuff I
The
just
bike
said.
symbol and a no parking.
Exactly.
So just to clarify on that would be eliminating the parking on Lacey between MM and Brassica.
Correct.
And then using that space as a bike lane for that kind of one block where there is no dedicated bike infrastructure.
That is correct.
Fantastic.
We recently marked a bunch of no parking zones on East Sherrill where the paint was fading at the request of ProMega. We also lengthened a couple of them to help with sight distance at some of the driveways in there. And we're looking at a possible RRFB location and raised crosswalk at one of the ProMega driveways where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic.
That'll be good because that path that runs from Research Park to Woods Hollow on the south side has no curb cuts at all. And so you can't access ProMega or any of the businesses or the farmers market. So I did submit to the bike and ped plan the idea of making some bump outs and curb ramps like we have down at the hospice care transit stop. And we have bump outs there at BTCI as well.
Let's see, we're working on PACER ratings, so every 2 years we rate all of our roadways, 1 to 10, we're about 50% done. That takes 4 people to do, so we're working through it as we have help from our street staff. I'll go back to the case. We got word that our Traceway path project that goes in front of the hub between Fish Hatchery Road and the Cannonball Trail, so the path would be on Traceway and then on Post, that we will most likely get funded for that, or the MPO is recommending us get funded for that in 2030.
Okay, well, that's a start.
Fish Hatchery Road and East Sherrill is still under construction. That East Sherrill closure will be in place until Saturday morning, so 2 days from now. We already talked about West Clayton speed limit signs.
Will they be doing any shoulders as part of that concrete restoration?
They're doing some, but not all. There still will be some pretty badly broken pavement in the shoulders. So that's what I've got for my staff report.
Any questions for staff? Any more questions for staff? We've asked a lot already.
It reminded me that we were doing this experiment with a roundabout.
Oh, yeah.
And is that done?
At Greenway and Coho.
Yeah.
So that temporary roundabout, our street staff have been calling it the roundabout in a box, which is probably a better phrase than temporary at this point. It has reduced speeds up there slightly, and it has obviously helped with people running stop signs, because there's no stop signs to run anymore. But it hasn't reduced speeds as much as I was hoping, frankly. So we don't currently have plans to install like permanent concrete structure there, but it is better than what was there before. So our current plan is to leave that in place.
Leave it there.
Yeah.
So. Anything else?
My other question, because I just read it in the Cap Times, was that they had to repave Whitney Way, and they claimed the reason was because of the weight of the BRT buses. Since those buses are already driving, the city of Madison said that the reason they were repaving the bus lane at Whitney Way was because of the damage that was done by heavier buses. That was Cap Times. I just saw it before I came here, so
this morning.
Fresh news. And I'm thinking, well, those buses already drive around Fitchburg, so are we going to have that? Even without BRT, they're still the same buses.
And the other question is that the real reason?
Right.
Or
I'm not familiar. I'll have to read the article. But Fish Hatchery Road is much newer than Whitney Way. I don't know what section of Whitney Way this was, but Fish Hatchery was built to our normal arterial cross section, which is pretty thick pavement, pretty thick base. So I don't have any concerns about the longer, heavier buses on it.
But we're letting those buses drive on other roads like Brennan and Trippington Pike and things like that. And so do we have to consider what those buses would do to other streets that they would drive on?
Yeah, those streets, I can talk with Metro Transit about, the repaving of Whitney Way and see if that's something we need to work into that project.
Thank you.
one of the things about that is that previously the buses drove in the curb lane and now they're driving in the median lane.
Right.
And so they may not have had that kind of weight before in the median lane, so.
It's all the same profile all the way across. It's not like it's thicker in the bus lane.
That's true, but maybe it hasn't been pounded as hard in the past and now it's, I'm ignorantly speculating, I admit. Okay, moving on.
I have a couple things, as I
Go ahead.
always do. And Ross has covered most of them, and the rest are pretty much things that other people have asked me to ask about. So I apologize for other people's questions this time. You mentioned, Ross, the bike lane on Lacey, Nebraska. Do we still have plans to do the yellow curb paint at some of those?
Yes, we do. I'll follow up with our streets crew on that yellow paint markings.
Okay. We'll come back to something else for future agenda items related in that area. I have had a couple requests for some areas where we could add some better crossing. One of them would be a request to mark the crossings at Lacey and Botanical. There's a lot of folks at the Limerick who will walk around, and there's a really nice multi-use path on the south side of Lacey in Hartung. And right now there's no marked crossing. The curb cuts are there, and they're legal crossings, but they're just not painted, and there's no signage. Given it's an older population, that was something that when Alder Dantzler and I had a meet and greet there over the weekend, that came up as something that they would like to have.
Yes, so with that, after you sent the email about it, I asked if we could get that painted by the developer. That wasn't in their original plans and we did not request it, so they said no.
Can you share are you looking at that on?
I can share my screen.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
It's not going to be super helpful because it's brand new and it's
Oh, right, it might not be there.
So where we're talking about is, it's basically, Botanical is right here in this image, but it's actually a few feet over now. It lines up with this driveway. So the crosswalks would be on the east and west sides of this intersection. So the developer said no, but we're planning on painting those ourselves as a city.
While you have that image up, there's another path that goes on the west side of the ponds, kind of where the T in Hartung is, right about there. And it comes down and hits the east-west path. It goes north to the east-west path, but it does not access the bike lanes. There's no curb ramp there. It's one of many places in the city where you have a multi-use path approach the street and then take a turn parallel or T intersection, and there's no curb ramp. So if you wanted to be on the bike lanes because of, for example, you were going to or coming from the Limerick or something like that. So this is not concrete work that you're talking about, it's only paint, right?
Correct.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, that would be a bigger change because that involves a curb cut and extra concrete. And yeah, so.
The one other one that was a kind of a similar request for some better crossing marking is Fish Hatch and High Ridge Trail, which obviously once we have the VRT, that will be improved quite a bit. I've had a couple folks here just trying to get from those, like the Sun Valley apartments. I've heard, kind of people saying that they're trying to get to the bus stop and it's not the greatest, safest, comfortable crossing. And if you're trying to get to Fitchburg Family Pharmacy or Clinky Cleaners as well, it's a little treacherous.
Yes, so for when VRT is put in on Fish Hatchery Road, we're going to have a crosswalk on the south side of this southwest side of this intersection, and a full traffic signal here. So that will greatly improve this intersection. Right now, this is basically a mid-block crossing. There's no signals or anything here, so.
If there's anything we can do in the short term, great. If not, I realize that it's on the list and will be in a couple of years.
Yeah, it's tough to spend money on this when we have a plan for a couple of years away.
Yeah.
It's a really nice bridge, it's just a couple blocks further south. Yeah.
I know we wouldn't put it between travel lanes, but would it be reasonable to put a state law yield to pedestrians on the median there facing both traffic in both directions? I don't know what the warrants are for that sign or anything.
There's no warrants for that sign. We could certainly put one up. I don't know how much good it would do. I don't think people are
it's 40 miles
reading
an hour.
signs, on Fish Hatchery Road, but we can look at it.
Somebody decided to stop right there because there was a pedestrian, that's almost worse than not.
Yeah. Somebody stops in one lane, somebody else doesn't.
That's like not a
The same thing happened at West Wash, the path, why they cut it down to one.
There's very similar issues at Cahill, Maine crossing. No controls. Okay, any other questions, ladies? Okay. All right, so the big event for today is Vision Zero discussion. We had a lot to read. Ross, guide us through what you want to talk about.
Yeah, so let me find my email.
I thought that first website was very helpful. My question, and I'm sure you will address it, will be where are we in this process? what's the status of the MPO's activities and how do we fit in?
So by the first website, do you mean the first?
The one that says components of an action plan.
Okay, yes. So just to kind of go over this, I sent you guys an email, but just for the record. So we have been awarded our Safe Streets for All grant by the federal government, but we have not signed a municipal agreement for this. Any agreement we sign would be with between Fitchburg and the MPO, and the MPO, the city of Madison, because the MPO is a part of the city of Madison, will be signing an agreement with the federal government. So we have not been authorized to spend any money related to this grant, even though we have been notified that we've been awarded. The MPO is going to handle all the administrative tasks related to the grant. Once we get the go-ahead from the MPO, then the municipalities involved, which Fitchburg is one of them, will issue our own requests for proposal for our various deliverables. Fitchburg's deliverable is a comprehensive safety action plan. Basically, that first section in your packet has the required elements of a comprehensive safety action plan according to the Safe Streets for All grant guidelines. And then the second two pieces in your packet are example requests for proposal from other municipalities. One is from a city and one is from the La Crosse MPO, Municipal Planning Organization. So you can kind of get an example of a more local piece of it, and then I thought the Monrovia is in California, apparently. But I thought they had a pretty good detailed RFP. They knew what they want going into it, obviously. So I thought that was good to include as well. Basically, this discussion, to be helpful to me writing this RFP, could focus on pieces that we definitely want to include in our comprehensive safety action plan. And then I'll include those elements in the RFP, and we can basically grade the proposals that we get based on how we feel they meet those requirements. So the city has an RFP template that we use. So a lot of the kind of standard language in here we don't need to worry about because Fitchburg has kind of an approved template for most of it. We'll definitely include all of the requirements that the Safe Streets for All grant requires. And I'll take your guys' discussion into account, but this will be reviewed and finalized by Public Works staff.
Yep.
So.
Well, the first thing I noticed was that we should have had a date in our resolution. Because the leadership commitment and goal setting. So if you go through these, how many? 7 elements. We don't probably need a consultant for the leadership commitment, goal setting, and the planning structure. Do you envision this committee to be the steering committee for this project?
So the steering committee would be larger than this commission. I think it's in the Monrovia. There is a list of who their steering commission is. I can try to find it, but yeah, continue.
And then would it be us and more staff? Are there other bodies or?
Most likely, yeah, staff members, maybe some other alders if we decide on that. Some members of the police department and possibly members of the public as well.
Okay. And so I know that RFPs will generally specify how many meetings the consultant is like, and so that would come under engagement and collaboration, whether we want to have a survey. We just had a big discussion about whether we should have had a bicycle and pedestrian survey for that part of that plan. Do you see a survey being part of it?
I do. So one thing to consider, our budget for this plan is $300,000. That's much larger than the budget for the bike and pedestrian plan.
That was like
update.
25, right?
Yes, so that $25,000 budget was the reason we didn't have a survey involved there.
Okay.
But we certainly have the budget for it in this plan.
Yep.
So I guess you mentioned number of meetings. Any feeling on how many, presentations to council, presentations to this commission, public meetings?
Working meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Any strong feelings on we definitely need to have 2 separate presentations to this commission or anything like that?
The only thing with council is obviously committee of the whole is usually the best venue for those type of things, for the housing, as just a point of reference for the housing study, which is a big one. We did a kind of an initial presentation to get council feedback before in the early development phases. We just had another presentation about the survey results and kind of the next steps as we go into the next phase of the actual plan development. And I assume there will be a final presentation once the plan is done. But so that's 3. That seems like a lot, but that would be kind of at the higher end, I think, of what.
Is there a public hearing for this, do you imagine?
We're not, I don't believe we're required to have one. I don't see a reason, if we're not required to have one, I don't see a reason to have a specific hearing outside of a committee, of a council meeting.
Up under leadership commitment, though, I would expect that in addition to passing the resolution to let the contract to the consultant, that there would be farther down the road, near the end of the process, the council would vote on accepting the proposal, and that resolution could be bundled with any further requirements like setting a date for achieving 0 and that kind of thing. So we would probably want the consultants at that final council meeting. Is that
I think that's pretty typical.
Yeah.
Sorry, definitely. I was talking more about a presentation context, but for them to be able to answer questions.
Yeah, I think, my opinion on committee of the whole, I think 1 to 2 committee of the whole presentations plus that final council meeting makes sense to me.
I think so. I think the housing there's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a different beast, and there's a lot more to have opinions about, I think, than for this.
Sure.
So.
Much higher interest to the public. The bike and ped plan update had a working meeting with the steering committee. I was on that steering committee representing Bike Fitchburg. It seemed too short and too shallow. We kind of gave ideas pretty general, and then we never got called together again. I think that there's plenty of input in crash statistics and all our infrastructure and traffic count data and stuff like that. I'd like to see a working group committee, the steering committee have a working session farther along in the process where we could see what the consultants were proposing and comment on it. My thoughts about that.
Okay.
I felt that the thing that we had with the bike and ped plan update was not very effective. And I always used to explain to constituents that at the beginning of a process, it's a blank slate, all the input is welcome, but people who are demanding information about the project aren't going to get any because nothing is set. as you move along toward the end, everything is cast in concrete. You can get all the information you want, every detail is spelled out, but it's hard to change. And we want to be, I think, far enough into it so that we can comment on something, but not so far into it that everything is all locked down like the bike and ped plan was when we're getting this final draft.
So are you envisioning something like a 30% completion meeting and a 60% completion meeting,
Or 50%,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
You know, if they said, there's gonna be this table and this stuff is gonna be in it, we don't have it all fleshed out yet, we could say, well, how about this other column, you know, that kind of thing. And then, if we get a crack at it kind of earlier in the process than the Bike and Ped Commission did, then when you're trying to make fine-tuning things at the end, you can do that with the what's it called, the referral draft.
Mm-hmm.
And say, oh, there's an omission here. Let's have another paragraph about this or something. I'm very aware that you do these things in composition language like InDesign, and once you've got all your content, then you have to format the whole thing so that the photos are next to the paragraphs that they're talking about, things like that. And if somebody drops in 3 paragraphs in the middle of some page, you have to do the whole thing over again, or at least from that part to the end. So I think we want to be able to, we don't want to see the final product first.
Right. Yeah. I think having 2 working group meetings makes sense to me.
Great.
And then we can have one that maybe it's paired with a public meeting earlier on in the plan process, and then another meeting later on where we've had a chance to digest and work on the input from those first few meetings and present more final product.
And I would request, or I would suggest that if a public hearing is deemed necessary, we could have it before this commission, which I think would be the appropriate one to be the lead in terms of referrals. And
yes,
so that when the referral draft comes out, the public gets to see everything, and then they can comment at that time.
Yeah, and I'm envisioning at least one public involvement meeting with this besides any public hearing stuff. I think an important part of this, and I believe
The required part.
part of the 7 pieces, there's an equity component in this, and I think going into different parts of Fitchburg, like South, are healthy neighborhoods basically, and getting engagement from people who live there will be very important to this, since those neighborhoods have a higher percentage of our, traffic injuries and fatalities.
And more people that don't have access to a personal vehicle and therefore are more dependent on walking and transit. Other suggestions?
I was just wondering, do we have a timeline of like how long the consultant would be working on the report?
So hopefully about a year. So it's definitely not a short process. A lot of our plans, especially the bigger ones like the neighborhood plans, not the comprehensive plan. What was the one?
Strategic plan?
Strategic plan, yes. Tend to go a lot longer than their original schedules, so hoping to avoid that if we can.
Infrastructure is a little more cut and dry than strategy, so we have that going for us.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was kind of thinking of too, is I think to Steve's point about having something to react to, I think that makes it easier to gauge that public feedback on something. Like if we had a public involvement meeting at 0%. I mean, what are people gonna say other than traffic deaths are bad and we want safer roads and we want more RFBs and we want more safe crossings, you know, it's.
There'll be a lot of specific suggestions about anecdotal
The
nuisances
intersection
and things.
I live next to
Yeah.
is terrible.
Yeah.
So I think in this case, I think I don't know that we need to start at 0 with that public involvement, because I think kind of the vision and the goals are, there's not much controversy. I don't know who's gonna come to a 0% meeting and say, we should have more traffic deaths, or we should have more crashes, so.
You know what would be very valuable, I think, as part of this engagement would be an opportunity for the public to learn about the safe system approach and what the hell is a Vision Zero. Because, you know, it's very different than the way we're used to thinking about traffic. You know, we usually wait for there to be crashes, and then we try to assign blame, and then we maybe fix something, you know, put in a high visibility crosswalk or something. And this is data-driven and proactive, and that's really different. And if we had, and it's something that maybe the city's communications people could undertake in partnership with the consultants, or it may be that this is in a can someplace and all we have to do is get it out there on fact or something, I don't know. But
That could be appropriate for the first committee of the whole meeting, potentially.
could be.
Talk about it as a conceptual idea.
How are your ratings?
Huh?
How are your ratings?
Well, I mean,
Huge.
the ratings for lots of public education meetings probably are minimal, but.
You know what would really be cool is a Fitchburg Star article, because that goes to all the households.
It does not go to all households.
Okay.
And actually,
stand
there's quite
corrected.
a significant number that it does not go to
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh,
We have
okay.
5 zip codes, so it's hard to get to all of them.
I do think that could very well be a, you know, component that comes out of the plan for us to do more of once we have the plan approved. You know, that's
Okay.
also an easy way to increase people's awareness in general and hit a wider amount of the public than, you know, just the people who drive through certain intersections.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of to better engage the public, to provide input to the plan. They would need, certainly down as part of the plan itself, education and enforcement are always the big things, and we're trying to move it over toward infrastructure and investment, but I see your point.
We can definitely have like a, I don't know, guiding education kind of, you know, first 2 slides of a public meeting, say, this is how we're thinking about this stuff. I think that's a good idea, yeah.
Similar to what we did way back in the day to the council. No, that was Elizabeth that helped me with that. Remember Elizabeth?
Yep.
Okay.
So I have maybe some more contextual questions about what needs to be in this RFP, if I can help myself and maybe others put it in context. So there was a MPO grant application that covered multiple municipalities, including Fitchburg. And the MPO was awarded the grant, which is a Safe Streets for All grant. We don't actually have the money to spend yet. But in parallel, or maybe about that same time, the MPO finished a regional safety action plan. And the regional safety action plan is like 50 or 60 pages, but then if you look at all the appendices, it's more than 200 pages. And it's got maps, and it's got high entry networks, and it's got surveys and results and public input meetings, and all kinds of things like that. And it includes Fitchburg. Like, that's all done July 2024. So now we're a component of the awarded Safe Streets for All grant. And we, as one of the municipalities, have an obligation to deliver the City of Fitchburg's Safety Action Plan. And that obligation is to fulfill fulfill the terms of the grant that was awarded to the MPO. Now, one of the things in the document that you shared with us says SS4A program encourages applicants to apply for supplemental planning funds to consolidate existing plans into a single comprehensive safety action plan covering the entire jurisdiction. So it seems like the way that these mechanics have worked out, we're sort of doing the opposite, and we're having Madison create a safety action plan and Fitchburg create a safety action plan, or whatever the obligations of each of those MPO members are. We're not having MPO as an overall body do it, but it seems like, if I look especially at the La Crosse plan, a lot of the work that La Crosse asks for in their RFP is already done in the MPO Regional Safety Action Plan. And it seems like what's missing from that, and all that remains, is to take the prioritization and the data and create actionable specifics. Put a bike lane here, narrow the street there on specific streets and specific areas of the city, not to kind of repeat what seems like it was already done in the MPO's plan, which it feels like is what the La Crosse RFP asks for. So do we need to start where the La Crosse RFP starts, or can we kind of go all the way to we want now specific recommendations? Use the information that's already been gathered and make recommendations. Maybe don't spend all $300,000 if we don't need to, but like it just seems duplicative to do it all over again for the city of Fitchburg.
I agree. I think that what we're doing is standing on the shoulders of the MPO plan.
Yes.
And so we will be figuring out where we need high visibility crosswalks, bump outs, lower speed limits, et cetera.
Yeah.
Based on their high injury network, we're not going to create a new one.
Right.
Yeah, so in our RFPs, especially these ones that are creating plans, there's generally a section where we say the part of the consultant's work will be to review and factor in all of these other documents. One of those will be like our bike and ped plan. One of them will definitely be the Greater Madison MPO Safety Action Plan. I think one way to think about all these levels of safety action plan is like when you're buying a house. So you get an inspection done. The home inspector tells you, your water heater's leaking, or you have termites in, your joists, or whatever they say. But if you're a first-time home buyer, you don't necessarily know how to fix all that stuff. Which that's kind of what the MPO Safety Action Plan did, is say, you have issues at these intersections, and at this intersection it's a bike issue, at this intersection it's a pedestrian issue, at this segment of road it's a speeding issue.
So it's data that we already know.
Right, so then you can get a contractor to come in and say, hey, here's my home inspection report, I need to fix all this stuff.
Yes.
What would you recommend, or how would you do that, and what are you going to charge me? And then they say, well, okay, for the water heater, I'll replace this section of pipe because it's corroded, and that'll stop the leaking. Or for the termites, I'll replace these 6 joists, and that'll cost you whatever, $10,000.
But I think that we're saying the same things. I don't think that the contractor says, well, the first thing we need to do is do an inspection all over again and see if all the information that was in the inspection is the same as what we found.
Yeah, so I'm saying we're doing the contractor part.
Yes.
We're not doing that inspection part.
Okay. So it's like the last 2 pieces of the La Crosse plan, RFP.
Yes, so the La Crosse RFP is an MPO level safety action plan. I think it has good information on how to format one of these RFPs. but ours will be closer to the Monrovia one, which is a city level RFP.
You know, part of the reason I like the lacrosse plan, it was just 10 pages, where Monrovia is like 7 pages or something. So.
Which, I mean, that gets into the level of specificity. The MPO level plan is less specific. It might have general recommendations, but what I envision for this plan is that we're looking for, at the intersection of Greenway Cross and Coho, you need curb bump outs on all 4 corners.
Right.
You need to have radar detection signs there at these 2 legs of the intersection, and you need to have 6 speed bumps along the road leading up to it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Which the MPO plan does not have that. It just says people speed on this road.
Right. So if I look at the tasks in the lacrosse plan, task 5 says project prioritization and implementation plan, and task 6 says final comprehensive safety action plan. That's what I feel like that's sort of what those 2 things would be, what we're asking for. The things that precede that are project management, data collection, public and stakeholder engagement, development of strategies and recommendations. Those seem like they're already done in the
I don't think public engagement is something that the MPO did. Do you?
There's all these surveys.
They did do public engagement,
Okay.
but I mean, we would also be doing public engagement, but focusing on Fitchburg people,
Yeah.
not a whole county.
Yeah.
You know, it's our 36,000 people versus the county's, I don't even know how many, several 100,000. So we can obviously be much more focused and all that. So a lot of the steps they'll be named the same thing, but we will do them differently than the MPO. So
And we won't need to consolidate back into a regional plan.
Okay.
We will come up with a specific plan for Fitchburg, then Public Works will do the things that are needed on the roads that we own, and we will petition the county and the state to do the things on their roads that we think are needed
So one thing is we would be,
within our city.
the county is also doing a comprehensive safety action plan. So I think in the interest of using our money wisely, we'll leave the county recommendations to the county's plan.
I thought I read someplace where they recommend that you do all the roads regardless of ownership, but that might have not been when your county's also doing a plan.
Right, I think there's obviously overlap, like the intersection of Fish Hatchery and East Sherrill and
Yep.
Fish Hatchery and Lacey, you know, it's hard to look at just the Lacey section of that, that Fitchburg owns. So there will be some overlap, but I think if there's just county sections, it just makes more sense to
And
me
will
to
we be
not
the
double
ones,
work.
will we be the ones for Fish Hatchery north of McKee and all of McKee? Because I'm a little foggy as to exactly who's got what responsibilities on those stretches now.
So the county still owns that, that's still their jurisdiction. We just do some maintenance, so that would be the county's. But like McKee, which is still called the county highway, from Fish Hatchery to Verona Road, that's a Fitchburg road.
Oh, okay.
So west of Verona Road, it's county, but
Still
east of
county.
there, it's
Okay.
Fitchburg's.
So that stretch of McKee is different than Fish Hatchery north of McKee.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yep. It's just different agreements signed at different times with different requirements.
Before we finalize all of the details on that, do we need to confirm with the county that they're doing all of the streets that we want to see this for, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, can we just be like, do we got all the streets covered, or are we gonna miss sections?
There's collaboration involved there. And if, say the county is like, well, we're focusing on more of the rural roads, then we can bring that into our plan.
How far along, Ross, is the county? Are they 6 months, a year ahead of us so that we can, or are we
No.
kind of at the same?
They are also being funded through this same MPO
Okay.
applied for grant, so they're at the same spot, which is not started yet.
Okay.
So in theory, at least all of the city level entities that are part of NPO are doing this exact same thing.
No.
Not all of them.
So some, because they I don't know. Some municipalities are, I could find the list, there's 2 or 3 others that are doing comprehensive safety action plans.
Yes.
There are some others that are doing active transportation plans, which is, you know, you could kind of think about that as somewhere between a safety action plan and a bike and ped plan, something like that. And then, you know, there's different types of plans that people are trying to get, that municipalities are trying to get out of this. And there's some municipalities that just aren't participating in this grant.
Madison is way ahead.
Yes, they already have a safety
So,
action plan.
yeah, and Sun Prairie had Vision Zero before us. What's their status? Are they at the same step as us as participants?
I believe they have published a safety action plan now.
That's what I was thinking. So they're ahead of us.
Yes.
Okay. Were they collaborators with the MPO grant?
I believe they're doing an active transportation plan, but I would have to double check that.
So
Yes, they have an adopted plan, Sun Prairie does.
okay. So are you getting what you need from us in this discussion?
Yeah, I think if anybody has more concrete thoughts on, yeah, I want to have a meeting in every healthy neighborhood, or stuff like that, it would be helpful to include. I obviously have ideas that I think are good, and I'll put in the RFP because I think they're good ideas. But yeah.
Will we see the RFP before it is available for folks to start submitting bids for?
That's a good question. Usually no. It would come back to commissions once we have a consultant to award it to.
Okay.
Okay. And same with the council.
Correct.
You were asking about our commission, I think.
Yes.
So we'll see it. Ross might be interested or willing to share a draft RFP with individuals who ask for it without necessarily running it by in one of these meetings.
Yeah, and it will be public. All our,
Yeah.
once we put it out on Quest, it's all public.
So we'll be asking this consultant to use the full suite of safety mitigations and try to nail down the high injury network, so it's a no injury network, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So we'll expect details, and then that will play out. The prioritization will then play out through public works submission to the CIP in future years. Is that the way it will be implemented?
Yes, there may be, we have a traffic safety fund in the CIP, so I would envision smaller projects kind of being added to that fund and maybe not having their own
Project.
CIP project
Yep.
number, but bigger projects, if it says you need to redesign McKee Road,
Yep.
that is a multi-million-dollar project and will be in its own spot in the CIP.
Right. And then some things are not CIP projects. For example, if we have policies that change speed limits or something like that, or if we have enforcement changes, or if somewhere down the road we are allowed to use video enforcement, those kinds of things that would be a CIP project.
Yeah, the stuff that gets included in the CIP is generally anything over $10,000.
And of persistent nature, not services necessarily.
Correct, yeah, a piece of infrastructure, capital, yeah.
Stuff that you can kick. Other questions for Ross, input to this?
I guess one final comment, because I know there's equity considerations for the plan. I And you mentioned kind of like do a meeting in HNI neighborhoods. I think one of the things we found just in my past experience of council is that it's just really hard to engage certain neighborhoods. And like just setting up a meeting is just not, it just doesn't work. Like, of course you can do it, but people don't show up. And why that is there's probably many reasons that we can speculate on, but one of the things I liked that the housing survey did was they showed up to events and asked people to participate in the survey and like kind of like had conversations. I think that's a better model for how we engage certain neighborhoods or even any neighborhood really, because a survey is, the problem with surveys is that they're done by the same people and you're not necessarily reaching segments of the population. I personally believe, I mean, like you do have a significant amount of money if you really want public engagement, and I'm not insisting that, you know what I mean, like if you really want public engagement, best way to do it is to knock on people's doors and to canvass. That's very expensive and time consuming. I'm not sure that we need that for this plan. I'd say that that's something the city maybe needs to do in certain cases, but it's hard to do and there is finances. So that's all I wanna say is that trying to be present at some events if we wanna do some public engagement, be at a park when an event is happening and talk with people, I think is more effective than just setting up a meeting. That's a little too passive.
Yeah.
Strong towns would suggest that the proper tools are a folding chair and a clipboard and notepad, and you go sit at the neighborhood. And I've always found that school bus drop-off time in the afternoon is the very best time because people get there plenty early and they hang out till the bus gets there. And you can talk to a lot of parents who probably walk there and say, you know, how is your neighborhood for traffic safety? And you'll get an earful. In this case, I think that would be ideal. Cultural relevance, getting the right people who fit into the neighborhood, I think is really important. I think that if the consultant used our neighborhood navigators, I don't know any of those people, but if I understand who they are and what they generally do, I think that would be a really good tool for the consultants to engage. They would have to train the neighborhood navigators, but I think that we can get those people to go into the neighborhoods and do the kind of things that Gabrielle is pointing out for a lot cheaper than, you know, professional engineers from a planning firm. So,
and to Alder Gerhardt's point, you know, we have some recent examples of this, like with the housing survey. We had some good engagement at like the community night out and the Southdale Resource Fair. And then I looked at the results of the urban forestry survey that went out. The results came back and we got an email today. And in Swan Creek, we had like 35 responses, and in Southdale we had 0. So, yeah, just to kind of put a bow on your point there. I think I'm mixing metaphors, whatever. But you know, the same survey was out there, but you know, some Highlands of Seminole and Swan Creek and Greenfield were a lot higher represented than Southdale and some of our other healthy neighborhoods.
Leopold,
yes,
Jamestown.
Yeah. So going where people are instead of making them come to us.
Yep.
My other question is, will we point out some particular challenges we have in the city that may be unique compared to others? And I'm speaking specifically of all of those roads we have that are very wide with no sidewalks. Like, how to handle that. I don't know if that pops up obviously in the high energy network or in other aspects of the plan where it's like, we know that those streets are problematic, even though maybe the high energy network doesn't show that. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, is that something that we have to point out in the plan and the RFP to like make sure that that's covered? Or, because I would be interested in hearing if there are solutions to that. I'm sure that there are, and I'm sure they're very expensive, but.
Yeah.
We need to point out to the consultants our resolutions whose numbers you have memorized about sidewalks.
Gabriella, get rid of those resolutions would probably be a point of the plan.
I know. Go down Hammersley Road west of the Odana Road Beltline crossing and see how they narrowed the road a formerly overly wide suburban road just like ours, and they cut the width by 2/3 and used the new space for a multi-use path that goes for miles and miles into the Green Tree neighborhood. And because of the way they did it, it's a multi-use path, so the city plows it. They made new terrace space by narrowing the road so that they didn't hit any landscaping or mature trees. So that is how you're gonna get a multi-use path down Osmondson through Seminole Highway. Seminole Forest, I meant to say.
Yes, I think those kind of
Seminoles.
streets will show up in the HNI data based on speeds. Some of them you can see in the MPO's HNI data. And some of them there just isn't enough traffic to really show up in the HNI stuff.
HIN.
Yes, sorry.
I was thinking, that sounds familiar.
my fault. High entry network.
Yeah, not healthy neighborhood initiative.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah.
You'll have to caution the consultants about that transposition and
Yeah, we'll
not
have
to get confused.
Control F through the plan. Okay, this one's right here. This one's wrong here. Yeah.
When we look at the fact that Sun Prairie has completed a plan and it's adopted by the city, and given that Sun Prairie is a member of an MPO, how did they fund that study if they can't access the grant funds yet? What was their source of money for their hiring of consultants?
I don't know if they applied for their own Safe Streets for All grant or if they just used their money in their budget. I mean, the city of Fitchburg could have applied directly to the Safe Streets for All program for a grant. It just made more sense to me to go with MPO, and they said, we're gonna do this application, can you send us 2 paragraphs? I'm like, yeah, that's easy.
And then do they have to deliver that plan to the MPO as a member of the MPO?
They're not required to. Like, we're not required to have this safety action plan, except for the fact that we applied for a grant to do it.
Well, doesn't it fulfill the terms of the grant? In other words, that was what we said we would do, and then the grant was awarded, and then to fulfill the terms of the grant, you have to do that.
But if the MPO had reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to be a part of it, applying for this grant? And I said, nope, then we wouldn't need a safety action plan.
Right.
So, we want to keep all our people alive.
Right.
Yes. So Sun Prairie did this independently.
Okay.
Is the
Just like
moral of the
Madison
story.
did.
Yeah.
Their RFP template could also be informative.
Yes, it could.
Except their RFP did their RFP build on the MPO data and network?
That's a good point. I don't believe so because they were working on it at the same time.
Yeah, so it might not be as good a model because of that. The ideal model would be a city in the Dane County who already built on the MPO plan, but there aren't any.
No one has because that came out last year.
Yeah.
So.
Ross, could you tell us a little bit about what could be next, like a Safe Streets for All implementation grant, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
This is all assuming, a shifting stance at the federal level, but at least as envisioned in the last administration.
Yes, so the kind of goal of the Safe Streets for All grant program is that municipalities or governmental organizations apply for the Safe Streets for All planning grants, come up with some sort of plan, whether it's an active transportation plan, a safety action plan, a corridor study, or whatever other kind of plan they want. And then once you have that plan from the planning grant, then you can apply for an implementation grant, or multiple implementation grants. So once the city of Fitchburg and our consultant has put this safety action plan together, there will be however many dozen probably areas that we will have called out and want to fix, and it'll cost a bunch of money, and then we can, you know, maybe pick our top 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever we want to do, apply for those Safe Streets for All implementation grants, or stuff like TAP grants or Safe Routes to School or LRIP, which those are all kind of state grants, to fund those projects. Or if there's some that we can't get grant money for, but the city feels that are important enough, then they can just be funded straight through our CIP and budget process. But doing this planning, the Safe Streets for All planning grant unlocks that Safe Streets for All implementation grant bucket full of money.
So to get the implementation grant, you have to have the safety action plan in place that meets all the requirements of the Safe Streets for All program.
Great.
The other thing you can do that we read about in the packet is you may have a study for a couple of modes or for part of your area or something like that. So you can get a supplemental planning grant to do more planning if that's needed. And supplemental planning grants also allow you to do experimentation. And that is the Coho Greenway Cross area, that mini roundabout is kind of an example of that. Bollards and paint and signage and things like that.
Yep. Think about it as stuff that's not concrete or asphalt.
Anything that's not concrete or asphalt or steel. Other questions or suggestions?
Just following on with your comment about the implementation grant, then would there be an obligation, because the planning grant was done through MPO, that the implementation grant would have to be applied for via the MPO?
I don't believe so, no.
Because we would have a safety action plan that would meet the requirements, and it was funded. They say who it's funded by. It doesn't have to be necessarily the same applicant, because they recognize that you could have fragmentation or consolidation of governmental units.
And I don't believe you even need to go through the Safe Streets for All program to make your plan in the first place. Like, say you get denied, you apply for a Safe Streets for All planning grant, and you get denied.
Oh, okay.
I think you can still write a safety action plan.
Sure.
And if it hits all their requirements,
Okay.
I believe you can then apply for the implementation grant. Someone who knows more about this grant than me might correct me on that, but yeah.
I thought it was the other way, that it had to be through this program, but I could be wrong too.
Because it seems like there's the risk that some municipality that's a member of the MPO that received the grant could fall on its face and fail to perform its part of the grant obligations, and that might or might not put the rest of the members of the MPO at risk because the grant wasn't properly fulfilled.
I think that the fulfillment of I think that the MPO has already fulfilled their part of the grant.
I'm not-
They don't even have the money.
Yeah, I'm not.
Well, they did what they signed up to do as a partner, but I guess we're sub-applicants, so.
Yeah, I'm not
We
sure
don't-
on the answer to that, but we will, all the municipalities will have agreements with the city of Madison. And there will be language in those agreements that says, if you do not fulfill your obligations under the grant, whatever they are,
Yes.
you have to pay the city of Madison back that money. Because the city of Madison is basically fronting all this money to the other municipalities, and then the city of Madison will get reimbursed by the federal government.
Oh, it is. So does that mean that we would already have access to the funds? I thought we didn't have
We have
access
to
to
have
the funds.
that agreement.
Yeah, we don't have that
Before they
agreement
give
with
us
the
the
city
money.
of Madison. Because the city of Madison has not signed anything with the federal government,
Yes.
so the city of Madison is going to sign the agreement with the federal government, and then they will sign the agreement with us.
I see.
They're protecting themselves that way.
Got it. Okay. That is why they chose to go forward, because they were not at risk of not funding themselves.
Well, they did this before this round of funding.
Okay.
They yeah.
Yeah, and
They did a previous round of planning.
could be that the city of Madison is doing the funding, but I just would want to clarify that the MPO is a separate regional governmental entity, and they are housed administratively in the city of Madison.
Yeah.
So they have cityofmadison.gov email addresses, and
Right.
they work in but they're not even in the same building. They're in the same building as CARPC, the Regional Planning Corporation 100 State.
But our agreement will be with the city of Madison.
Okay. Because they're the financial agent.
Yes.
Very good.
So I want to just kind of piggyback on something Rick had mentioned earlier. One of many good points Rick has made this evening. So let's say that we're able to build on the work that's already been done by the MPO and others, and we don't need to spend the full 300 that we have for the planning process here. Does whatever we save there, if we save 50 grand or what have you, can we roll that over into implementation? Are we getting a check essentially to do this work, and whatever's left over is ours?
Right.
Or is this only, is it to our benefit to spend $299,999 to do all the planning?
We can do that experimentation.
I don't, so I'll do one at a time. No, if our RFP can be up to $300,000. For the proposal we can accept can be up to $300,000 to be covered under this grant. Anything beyond that, say we accept a proposal that's valued at $350,000, City of Fitchburg has to cover that extra $50,000 plus our 20% of the $300,000 that we already had. Anything under would reduce the City of Fitchburg's 20% and the federal government's 80%. We won't get that extra money. If, say we sign an agreement for $200,000 with a consultant, that $100,000 is just not
awarded.
Doesn't exist.
Okay.
For our purposes.
And we get it after the fact, right?
We
spend the money and then federal government reimburses.
Yes, correct. It's all a reimbursement process. For the experimentation, that was not part of our grant application.
So we can't do that.
We can't do that.
Okay.
This says that the federal grant that went to the city of Sun Prairie was a TAP grant in the amount of $72,000, 2022.
Well, we have more money than them.
Seriously.
And I'll say, I have reviewed their plan. I want our plan to be more detailed than theirs.
Okay, so we can't just cross out the word Sun Prairie.
What did you think their plan
No,
was?
because all of the street names are different.
I didn't think it was missing anything in particular. I'm envisioning more actionable, like infrastructure recommendations than what their plan has in it. I think their plan is valuable, and you can definitely like kind of step through to more like corridor planning or intersection safety studies. But I'd kind of like to combine those two steps if possible.
Also, Sun Prairie is a lot more compact than Fitchburg, so a smaller plan might do the trick for them.
Mm-hmm.
So is theirs more like the MPO plan then, where it's kind of West Main Street's a terrible location, but it doesn't say at West Main Street and West City Station Drive they need to put our RFBs or bump outs or anything, and we want to be more that more level of precise, where at Lacey and Fish Hatch we want this here and this here.
That's more the level I'm seeing for ours. So yeah.
Awesome.
Ariel, I'm wondering if you or your firm has had any experience in this area.
Yeah, I just actually this year I worked on like a safe routes to school plan, kind of similar, and in that plan it was in Belleville, so we looked at the whole village and we kind of recommended, well, there was one focus with like the school area, but then we also combined some like the whole whole bike and pedestrian, looking at that throughout the whole city. And we did some cost estimates for like, here we recommend RRFBs, like these are approximately this much, or we recommended doing this intersection, it would be this much. So I'm curious if maybe like having some costs in there might be helpful, so that then, because then it helped them go for different grants, and like the TAP grant, that they could say, okay, this is gonna cost this much, we could apply for it in the grant. And then we kind of like prioritized some of the things, like this is more of a long-term thing when a development moves in, this is a medium term, this is short term that we can work on now, and you can start applying for funding. So maybe adding some component of like a timeline and costs might be helpful.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
The prioritization part of that too, like what will make the biggest difference
Mhm.
in everything.
Yeah, I think some sort of like, decision matrix type.
Yeah, it was kind of a
idea
matrix type of thing, yeah.
Where, you combine, your cost, your,
Benefits.
timeline, and then your benefit to the community, I
The
think.
scoring system,
Exactly.
yeah.
And to those points, I think it's fantastic. And I think that would help from a transparency and a public awareness standpoint of why have you not put an RRFB at this location, or why have you not done this or that? And because we have a list of 45 things and it totals $18 million, and we do not have $18 million. I look at like the staffing study. I've had some folks ask, why we don't have crossing guards by one of the schools? And I say, we have a list of 45 positions that we would like to hire, and crossing guard isn't even on that list of 45. So, kind of puts it in perspective to say, kind of here's what we've identified, and here are the logistics and the challenges. And then I think, should we ever have to go to a referendum, or should we ever have to have any sort of more in-depth public conversations like that, we have that data that we can say, how, what are you willing to sacrifice to make this happen? Or, are you willing to pay more taxes to make this happen? Or, kind of prioritize and say, I guess I don't really need my sidewalks in my neighborhood, or this secondary sidewalk, because it's easier to, it's more impactful that we have this Lacey Road cross, RRFB or something, so.
Yeah, so City of Madison has, I'm finding another thing from them as well, but they have this Safe Streets prioritization tool. And this is kind of their layout. I just downloaded their Excel sheet for like the third time, because I didn't remember where I saved it, but I'm gonna bring that up as another example of, kind of a prioritization structure.
Look at the algebra in that second to the column from the left, or from the right.
This column labels so you know which column's there.
Yeah.
Sharing, stop share.
Yeah, if the quadratic equation's not in our RFP, I'm very disappointed.
So this is a list of all of Madison's
Interventions.
projects that they have on their list. I believe these are all yet to be done, but these might be ones they've completed. I don't quite remember.
Is there?
This is the candidate list, so
So column Q has the estimated cost of the project.
We are lucky that, I think that we want this in the report, and therefore we need the cost estimates.
Exactly.
We are lucky compared to, say, Belleville, in that we can produce engineer estimates in-house. But again,
I'll tell you, I'm not gonna have the time to do them for all the projects that are gonna be in this.
yeah, that's true.
So, but so this is kind of just an example. So anyway.
Do you have any examples of RFPs that you think are strong that, I don't know if you were the one that
Yeah,
reviews the
I don't do a
RFPs
lot
or.
of the RFP stuff. I don't know.
Generally, like consulting firms have like their business people look at RFPs a lot of times, at least mine, Baxter and Whitman, who I worked for before, did.
Business development.
Yeah, and then after that, they say to the engineers, hey, put something together.
Yeah.
because-
It's nice that the city of Madison shared there.
Elizabeth, do you have anything that you would like to ask or share?
I don't think so. I think all my thoughts were covered by Gabriella, but it's a good discussion.
Very good. Any further discussion? Any further questions for us, Ross?
I think I have enough to go on.
Very good. Well, I'm excited that you're working on this and that you have our input.
As far as timeline, I really honestly have no idea, whether we get something signed with the federal government is anybody's guess. So I hope this starts rolling soon, but I really, I don't
Things
know.
to avoid are projects that involve only bikes, peds, or transit, and things that have equity in their name. So we want kind of comprehensive treatments of intersections that affect all road users and stretches. All right, anything to report from the council?
Ross covered most of it here. We only had one meeting since the last TTC meeting. And as mentioned, referred out the resolution approving design services agreement for the Highway underpass. Referred out approving second amendment to the agreement for engineering services for Fitchburg Road reconstruction. We did approve the final plat for the last phase, phase 5 of Terra Vesa. I bring that up because now my understanding is, based on their timing, they will be building the infrastructure next year, which would mean that Lacey Road will now go from western boundary to eastern boundary of our city in 2026. So I figured that might be...
Meadowwood Drive.
I'm sorry?
It'll connect to Meadowwood Drive.
Yes. So yeah, if you're going east, you'll be able to continue on into the town of... It's town of Dunn on the south side and town of Blooming Grove on the north side. So...
be able to come from the town of Blooming Grove and go to the town of Dunn.
But yeah, so in case that's of interest from a transportation network perspective.
Very interesting.
Let's see. Also approved the resolution related to the property acquisition on Vetrona, which we approved in here last month. And last but not least, we also approved both the Greenfield and the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plans that we had discussed in here in August, I want to say. I'll also just add, outside of council specifically, I think I've mentioned this to some of you. I've been just hearing a lot of great public feedback about our plans to expand transit in the city, both 65, 75, and paratransit. I've probably had half a dozen people in the last week tell me they're excited about 65, and especially the paratransit on that. I was actually, had somebody on the bus today, was talking to, patted me on the shoulder and we were chatting. So hello, I know they're going to be watching on YouTube later, so shout out to them. So we're moving in the right direction here, and folks are paying attention and appreciative of that work. So I just wanted to kind of call that out. And one comment on the 75 specifically that I got on Facebook during the week without driving was about restoring service to kind of that Fitchburg-Nesbit corridor that we've talked about that lost service because of the changes in Verona.
The unilateral changes.
Yes. The changes for which, yes, we were not a part. I stress that that's part of our plan with the 75 to reroute it and bring service back to that area. There's a lot of senior apartment communities there, and another one coming that we just approved and that Dane County just approved $8 million for on Nesbit near Fitchburg too. So that's an area that should be a priority for bringing transit service back, and it's included in our transit plan, but I just wanted to kind of call that one out specifically too. I don't know if that person's also going to be watching on YouTube, but hello to them if they are. And that's it.
Very good. Let's go to the Plan Commission next, if you don't mind.
Logan covered most of mine, but one from, because I wasn't here last week that I wanted to mention. City on the Hill Church on Fish Entry Road, and right next door is Bowman Plaza. That is being redeveloped, and so the City on the Church Hill is expanding, and they are kind of like have a development plan that works in tandem with Bowman Plaza, so that they're doing some shared parking, and it's a nice example of a nice collaboration. And that Bowman Plaza is going to be, when it's complete, the tallest building in Fitchburg to date. And so that's moving forward. We actually approved some TIF, some tax increment district financing for that. So, which is great. So that's moving forward. But City on the Hill Church is redesigning their like traffic flow in there, so that their traffic will very soon go to the lighted intersection at Ocala, rather than where it is now, where it's offset from the lighted intersection. So that will be redone. I believe that's part of the first phase. They're doing their work in 3 different phases, and they'll be creating that shared drive, which will be good for traffic for that area.
And the city is requiring a traffic impact analysis for that development, because like you said, it's going to be a very large residential and commercial building there, as well as the add-ons to the church. So we're looking at all of the driveways and various intersections around there to see the impact on traffic and what we need to require of the developer to mitigate it.
Yes. So just wanted to point that out, and I think that's all I have.
Very good. So, Ross, you were not at Bike and Ped. I was. I was looking up the agenda so I could give you to remind me what we talked about. They were hoping to have a discussion on RRFBs, so that got deferred.
Yes, I was having trouble logging in. I left my phone at work, so I couldn't do the two-factor authentication at home.
That makes it hard. Sean Coville, who I know from years back when we worked on the active living work group, that was convened by UW Health in 2014. We worked for a year, and 6 municipalities, the university and Dane County, submitted their bicycle-friendly community applications all at the same time. And that's when we got our first silver, and Madison got platinum. So Sean was the convener of that. He now is the program manager for Dane County for the Wisconsin Bike Fed. And he did about a half-hour presentation on the kinds of things that the Bike Fed is working on, particularly safe routes to schools. They expanded last year. They have the contract from WISDOT, it's a TAP grant, to run safe routes to schools programs. Sean points out that he has, I forget the exact number, but I think it's 14 school districts and like 100 elementary schools, and so they have to prioritize, and they're doing that based on crash data and equity. But one of their targets is Leopold. There were 4 original community schools in the Leopold, in the Madison Metropolitan School District. Now there are 8, and all 4 of those are on the list. He spent some time telling, what their programming was about and how they're working with the various schools and what else the Bike Fed is doing in the area, including Fitchburg, for example. You could ride your bike down to the football game on Saturday and they'll park it for you. After that, Andy Potts, who's the chair of the commission, is on the Governor's Bicycle Coordinating Council, and Andy made a report. And Andy and Joe Maldonado, Alder Maldonado, presented to the last committee of the whole on the bike and pedestrian commission and what they're trying to do and what they've done so far. And I spoke briefly on the Bike Fitchburg's role, our nonprofit bike advocacy organization for the city. So Andy reported on the committee of the whole, and then Phil Groupie, the staff contact, went through and showed, and maybe you could share your screen and get this up, the Fitchburg Open Data Portal GIS tool.
Yes.
Anyway, there's some very cool layers in this GIS display. My favorite is the 6-inch 2024 orthophotography, but there's bikes and ped layers and curb cuts and watersheds and every other thing you can think of. A lot of people don't know about that, so he was making sure that everybody on the Bike and Ped Commission knew about it, and I'm making sure all of you know about it. So here's how to find it. Let's see.
So if you just Google Fitchburg Open Data, it'll come up.
You go right there, okay.
There's a link on the bottom of Fitchburg.
And there's, if you go on any of the city pages, down on the bottom, there's like popular tools or something. And it's number 1 there on the upper left.
Yeah, so this is the, so yeah, this is the general GIS viewer. There's a lot of other more specific maps as well. But if you...
So you have to move Elizabeth there.
But you can look at, like this little wrench is the public works layer, so you can see like our latest road ratings, which will be updated hopefully in like a week.
Cool.
These are 2 years old, these ones up here. There's also parks layers.
Parks layer has the bike and the bicycle infrastructure.
You can see all of our TID districts. That is helpful to know. I use this one a lot because I don't remember the numbers. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on here. It's pretty excellent.
And it gets really granular.
Yeah, curb ramps, and it's an interactive map. He's showing the whole city, but you can zoom in on the intersection in front of your house, so you can see right there.
Yeah, the way you get to the photography, the aerial imagery is this base map gallery, and then you can go, we could go to 1937, but you can't see anything, it's very blurry.
And so right now, all those green dots are the storm drains.
Satellites.
These are the curb ramps.
Oh, those are the curb ramps, okay. But they'll have some storm drains and the water utility maps and everything in there. Okay, so that was the last item that they had. And yes, council update, staff update, and Mike Fitchburg update. Any questions on that? So I guess, you know what they wanted to discuss with RRFBs?
Yes, so one of the members wants to talk about potential locations and then also like RRFBs versus Hawk beacons. And Hawk is also an acronym, but it's a bad one, and I don't remember what it stands for.
Hybrid pedestrian beacon is its other name. I don't know what Hawk exactly stands for.
Yeah, it's like 2 of the letters are in the middle of the words.
Yeah.
But basically it's a light, you press the button and it actually is a red light.
Yeah, and the one that you can see is on East Mifflin Street at Broome. And it's completely dark to the motor traffic. And if you come up there, and that's a bicycle boulevard, so it's a heavy crossing, and you push the button, you get 2 flashing yellows.
Yes.
And then it turns red, and then I don't think there's a walk signal, right? Or there is a walk signal. Pedestrian heads.
Yeah, I think there is. I'm not sure.
The pedestrian heads then give you a walk, and there might be bike heads there too that say bicycles may go.
Yeah.
So that's a Hawk.
Yeah. We'll discuss that more at the next Bike and Ped meeting.
Okay. And
there's other options. So.
And they should be more costly, right?
They are more costly.
Yeah.
Like 10 grand for an RRFB, like 50 grand for a Hawk.
Yeah. But you would use the Hawk where there's kind of no gaps.
Yeah.
Right.
Hawks have the same warrants as a full traffic signal.
Yeah. All right then.
If you're on future agenda items.
Yes, we're on to future agenda items. What do you have?
Mentioned one, so at the last Housing Advisory Committee meeting, we were talking about RFPs for housing. So it was not quite related to transportation, but we ended up veering into a small discussion about the importance of transit and investing in transit so that housing can kind of follow where the transit system goes. And it was mostly Jenny Sanders, who's a local realtor, and Michelle Mertens, who is used to be like an affordable housing developer, and so she's got a lot of experience with that. And it was just interesting because the committee was very interested in talking about transit and its connection to housing. And I just said this is something that we should talk about a little bit more because there's such an important connection there, and I don't think we have that discussion enough. And so at some point you might be invited, Ross, to come to HAC, and we can let you all know when that's happening if you want to join. But
Sure.
I don't know how we would have that discussion here. I'm not sure it's an imminent discussion, but I think it's important, and I think especially when people talk about, I get a lot of questions about why would no one uses the bus, why would we extend the line? And it's like, well, people won't use the bus if it's not there. So the bus has to be there every day for like at least a year, maybe more, before people will start using it and the housing will follow.
They say 3 years before it's gonna reach full ridership.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just an interesting, the connection was there, and it was interesting that the Housing Advisory Committee was so excited about
We'll be
talking.
back to this conundrum because we have a lot of housing going in on East Sherrill and Lacey. And you would like the bus to be able to go out and back on the same route, but you'd also like to be able to cover both routes. And so we have those kind of conflicting goals along there. You know, people at what's it called? The Addison, they want transit too. People up at Lafayette, which is up in Central Park Place, they want transit too. All right,
I have a couple
other future agenda items.
Yep. I'm going to just, first of all, plus one what Alder Gerhard just said. I had almost that exact same conversation yesterday, talking to somebody at the Bike the Berg wrap-up who works in affordable housing, and said that having being on the bus line helps them with some of their WIDA funding from the state.
Scoring.
Yep, so I'll plus one any way we can kind of have a conversation about the interfacing between the importance of transportation, transit, and housing affordability. I also wanted to perhaps put on, and this may be long future, but I just kind of want to speak it into existence now. We last year limited parking on Brassica and Terravessa because of the school bus traffic and the Route 65 traffic and the conflicts with parking. Now, the way everything is growing up, the last parcels around that block on the outer side are all developing or developed. And then the only thing that's not there is the Cesta on the inner part of that block. There are still some times when it's tough. There's a boat parked right on the corner now, and there have been cars parked on both sides, which makes it harder for the bus. So what I'm getting at with this is, if and as we extend to all-day bus service, there may be places like this where the conflicts are more frequent because of just there being more buses. So there might be places we want to review our parking on bus routes, and see if there are other places where it would make sense to eliminate or restrict or relocate parking.
Or time limit.
And on that, kind of another flip side of this here too, was having a conversation about how we minimize some of the surface parking and some of the larger apartments, especially on some of our roads like Lacey Road, where we have all these nice parking lanes here, but because of our alternate side parking ordinance in the winter, the parking, you really only have half the parking that you can rely on for the year. So I had a conversation with somebody who would be interested in seeing if there's ways we could look at our snow emergency or our alternate side parking ordinance, so that we could more rely on that street parking year round other than when it's a blizzard. And then that may help mitigate or reduce the amount of parking that needs to go onto some of the larger multifamily buildings or commercial buildings, because there's already street parking that we may have built.
And we like street parking because it's traffic calming.
Yes.
I had I have a pretty elaborate proposal for a emergency, snow emergency system that I would like to talk to you about sometime when it's convenient to you.
All right.
Other future agenda items? Well, that gives a couple of ideas. And we can always revisit anything that re-arises, like quiet zones or transit. Very good. Is there any announcements besides our next meeting? Okay. Oh, we should acknowledge that last week we had a week without driving, and we had a good turnout at the Lafayette, not the Lafayette, the Terrace Point for our community seminar. And Bill Jetzer has the recording of that Zoom, so I'm hoping that I can get it from him and we can try to get it up on FACT. All right, our next meeting will be November 13th. And do we have to cancel any more, did you say?
We do need to cancel one more meeting.
And did you had some advice on that? I thought.
The December one is, the November meeting will be looking at our transit plan, so
Okay.
I'd say the December one is a better one to cancel.
Okay. So the next meeting after that will be January. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Fred. All in favor, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned.